Getting addicted to games is a feeling that I'm sure nearly all of us have had in one form or another, whether that be trying to 100% a game and seeing every single piece of content it has to offer, to dumping your entire life savings into some gacha game to try and pull your favourite anime goblins. It's normally associated with pretty degenerate times in our life, spending hours upon hours in a row sat in your room, forgetting to actually, live your life. But god is it so fun to get fully immersed in a game like that, and some genres are overall better at it than others. Roguelikes tend to have a strong hook to them because of their naturally endless nature, and emphasis on trying over and over again to both unlock new items to help you get stronger, and to let you improve over time. And games that have any form of gambling or general RNG to them, like the aforementioned gacha stuff or card games, are obviously going to invade our brains more. So, what do you get when you mix the satisfying feeling of grinding and improving at a roguelike with one of the most popular card games of all time? Poker.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, what you get is the awakening of a monster. Yeah, Balatro has had one of the most explosive rises that I've seen in gaming in a decent while, especially for an indie release. It started as a decently niche yet well-loved game that has some dedicated fans and great content made about it. I'm sure you've seen countless scoring infinity times a billion videos, but now it has 3 Game Awards under its belt, including a goddamn Game of the Year nomination. The explosion of this game after that nomination dropped has been so insane that there's pretty much a new genre of tweet where people start out questioning if this game really deserves all the love it's gotten, then they try it for the first time, and have that familiar epiphany of, I understand now. These people have very good reason to react like this too, as Balatro is one of the most satisfying and almost hypnotic games that I've played in a long time, with amazingly simple yet hard to master mechanics, sound design that itches my brain in the best ways, and of course, such unique and gripping visuals. So let's dive into what makes Balatro such an addictive masterstroke, despite its humble beginnings. Now, fair warning before we actually start, I'm likely going to be jumping between a bunch of different aspects about this game that may or may not be relevant to whatever section we're actually on, so just be ready for that, go with the flow and don't be a wet wipe about it. This game is shockingly complex. Anyways, before any game can truly get you hooked on its gameplay, it needs to convince you to actually pick it up in the first place through advertising, watching content creators play it, and so on. And the key to all of this is making your game look and sound as attractive, satisfying, and as entertaining as possible, as well as making it just weird enough to keep people's heads turned on you. Now, I could very much talk about the, innovative ways that Local Thunk, the developer of this game, has chosen to advertise this game and its updates, with its most recent trailers often devolving into either violent subliminal messaging to banana-fueled mental breakdowns. So, let's just focus on how the actual game looks, okay? So, the first thing that will probably stand out to you when booting up the game is just how trippy and odd the backgrounds look. It looks like some sort of slime or strange portal kind of animation that sticks around for the entire game, only changing colour when encountering the boss blinds, which we'll get into later. But how does the game pull off having the literal same background animation for the entire run? That sounds like it would make the game insanely boring to look at. It's like playing a Mario game, but every single level looks like the 1-1 grassland. How does Balatro make it work? Well, the advantages of having this constant background are twofold. First off, runs of this game don't tend to be the longest compared to other roguelites, if we don't count endless mode, maybe half an hour or so normally, so having only one background doesn't tend to get too boring or overstay its welcome. Secondly, this game is overall a very relaxed and fairly low energy experience outside of those tense boss blinds, so having this almost hypnotic background that has this magical, melting texture aids in engaging the player in this chill yet strange vibe, helped further by the music. I'd say the music in this game is one of the more recognisable aspects of this game's general feeling, as I believe it captures the entrancing and immersive nature of the gameplay loop perfectly, in a way that keeps players engaged. For how simple the music sounds, there are so many little pieces that come together perfectly, such as these high-pitched synths that often go on very free-form solos that give a very jazzy feeling, creating some nice casual emotions. This is compounded upon by the slow, walking pace tempo of every track in this game, which often flow into each other seamlessly during actual runs. They never let the music get too intense even in the hardest sections of the run, keeping the player in this almost trance-like state, where even in those close call moments where their score just barely meets the blind goal, they're never made to feel overwhelmed with everything going on, making the experience of playing Balatro consistently engaging, yet calming and intriguing. The most important part of this game's aesthetics to me, though, are the things that actually affect gameplay the most, the UI elements, and the designs of the cards and jokers, all of which come together to make one of the more satisfying gameplay experiences I've ever seen in a roguelite. To be more specific, both the sounds that play when a card or joker is activated, as well as the little jump animations that play with it, really give each and every action that takes place when you play your cards feel impactful and rewarding. The little clicks when you gain chips, and the larger bell-like sounds when you gain malt, fit so well with how much they impact your score, and the many different card effects, such as holo, polychrome and so on, make each card feel almost magical to own. The patterns and colours stick out so much from most other things in this game, and really make the enhancements feel rewarding to get. My favourite part of the UI though has got to be the fire effects that plays when your hand one-shots the blind. It's so much smoother than most of the other animations in this game, but that makes the excitement of getting insanely high scores so much more impactful. With the flames dancing as the card sound effects go faster and faster, the whole thing comes together to make one hell of a rush. The design of the Joker cards, of which there's currently a staggering 150 you can unlock, are all really solid as well. A lot of the lower rarity ones share this template of Jimbo, just in different colours or with different backgrounds, but that base Joker design is very effective for how simple it is. The palette is very bright and sharp, which makes them seem more lively and important when you own them, and while the variations in these basic ones aren't quite enough for you to instantly remember them at a glance, they do enough to be distinct from one another at the very least. When we get onto the more unique Jokers though, the art style becomes a lot more varied, with my favourite aspect of these Joker designs being just how flowing and kind of unstable the line work is for a lot of them. There are many examples of Jokers with these really complex and almost chaotic patterns in either the background or in the actual Joker design, and this kind of style is utterly perfect for how the game aims to portray these Jokers, and the gameplay honestly, with this kind of goofy yet chaotic and frantic feeling, which creates a ton of intrigue and excitement when discovering the many Jokers in this game. For example, the player is going to be pretty drawn to the freaking banana the first time they see it, but that moment when they come across Banana version 2, with lightning and everything coming off of it, that's when they know that they've just found something powerful and reliable. And that ability for the Joker's design to accurately portray their function is done so well in so many places. That's all of the visual aspects I wanted to cover out of the way, so let's move into probably the most important part, the gameplay experience, and how it's so perfectly able to both get you hooked in on the main gameplay loop in the first place, and how it keeps you within it even after hundreds of runs, with just how fun it is exploring and experimenting with this game. Now, despite how intriguing and entrancing the visual and audio-based aspects of this game are, the very nature of a game based on poker rules is going to be intimidating to many players who aren't familiar with these kinds of card games, so this game has to ease players into the gameplay loop to show them that they really don't need to understand poker in order to love this game, a purposeful choice from Local Thunk. The tutorial just takes you straight into a regular run with your guide, Jimbo, concisely explaining the structure of the game, with each ante being made of 3 blinds that slowly increase the score requirements as they go, with the 3rd blind having a special restriction or challenge that you need to build around beforehand. You play poker hands to obtain these chips, the rarer hands scoring more than others, and your score is calculated as the product of the amount of chips and mults you get in each hand. The poker hands aren't slowly explained to you one by one. The game lets you read and discover them at your own pace, which really helps the start of the game feel less handholdy. And having one of the literal jokers you can obtain in your run explain everything to you is a really charming choice, which makes the tutorial way more investing. As the player slowly gets used to the controls, slowly selecting their cards and seeing what they've drawn, they begin to get those neurons firing about how to stack up as many chips as they can. Yes, they're probably going to start by throwing their hands at the screen and barely scoring anything, but the longer they play and the more demanding the score requirements get, they begin to look at their cards more closely, especially if they pick up certain jokers that require specific cards or hands to increase their score, give them more money, and so on. The very basic effects of many of the common jokers make this learning process really simple, such as the 4 jokers that give you +3 mult when playing a card of a certain suit, with this set of jokers incentivizing players to build towards playing as many of their chosen suit as they can, planting that seed of deck building in their minds that will explode as the run continues. This progression in the complexity of the game, going from simply playing poker hands to score, to combining your hands with some simple jokers, is slight yet crucial at allowing new players to feel like they're beginning to get the hang of how the game works at a basic level. That feeling of creating your first synergy between the cards you play with the jokers you buy, such as playing a flush of spades with the Wrathful Joker, is the first taste of power that they're going to get, which I know sounds dramatic, but stick with me here. The feeling of watching their score go up further and further in the early game, and unlocking that fire animation for the first time, as well as seeing their cards and jokers shake and make those very satisfying sound effects, all comes together to make such a fun and rewarding gameplay experience in the early game, allowing them to not only build up their money to make their run even stronger, but also their confidence and knowledge of the game to allow them to make better choices. As the player keeps building on the foundations of the build that they've made, or just buying whatever jokers look or sound the funniest as they somehow edge past each blind, they're probably going to need to start using the majority of their hand and discards to even get past each round, so they're going to start looking towards the rest of the shop to try and squeeze more out of their money, leading them to pay more attention to the vouchers and card packs, introducing the player to the deck building part of this game. We'll start by going over the vouchers as they're the easiest to get a grasp of. They come with a hefty price tag of $10, which already makes them seem important, which is very fitting as these are the most permanent kinds of power-ups you can get in any given run, giving you very strong effects such as extra discards or hands to play with, a higher chance to see enhanced jokers and stuff like that, a higher variety of cards in the shop, and a whole host of other things that really supplement the enjoyment of the game. They're very rarely going to be what wins you a run in most cases, but they instead are the gateway into the more complex and more powerful builds that bring you towards the late game. Then we've got the 5 unique kinds of packs you can buy, being standard packs, arcana packs, buffoon packs, celestial packs, and spectral packs. Buffoon packs and standard packs just give you more jokers and playing cards respectively, so they're not that interesting, but these other 3 are what really shape how your deck is going to look the further you get into your run. Arcana packs, and their crackhead cousin Spectral packs, focus primarily on both enhancing the cards you have currently to give you more money, chips or mult, or they alter which cards are in your deck in the first place, to make achieving certain hand types easier. From simple examples such as converting a few cards to a certain suit to make flushes easier, to even crazier stuff with the Spectral packs, such as creating a rare joker, the highest regular rarity outside of the 5 legendary jokers, but getting rid of every dollar you have. The planet cards increase the amount of flat chips and molds that each hand gives you, a fairly simple way of allowing the player to choose what kind of run they want to go for, but also being far less committal than the Tarot and Spectral cards, as their actual deck isn't being tampered with, making these a far more passive way of upgrading a run. All of these booster packs allow the player to feel far more in control of their game, giving them the opportunity to play in the way that they are most comfortable with, raising both the skill ceiling and the sheer number of ways you can play the game. The possibilities for deck options and combos with these jokers and these upgrade cards are damn near endless. Moving on forward in our first run, as the player takes advantage of all the ways to upgrade their run, eventually the scaling of each ante is going to get crazier and crazier, going from pretty inconsequential increases of a few thousand, to massive increases of 50,000 or more chips between a single ante. The score ramping up this quickly in the later sections of the game is likely going to make a new player far more frantic about getting enough score, which is likely going to lead to them making more hasty choices and mistakes because of it, such as making too many glass jokers that do increase your score potential a lot, yes, but can also shatter at a moment's notice, and leave you without your strongest cards. It may also lead to them spending way more money than they need to on re-rolling the shop or buying a ton of Arcana and Celestial packs in a desperate effort to get the last upgrades they need to make it to the end of the run, leaving them with very little ability to rebuild their deck after a bad boss blind or something. And all of this panic is most likely going to lead to one blind that is just too much, or an unfortunate boss blind that completely counters their build, killing their first run. The end of a player's first run in any roguelike is always going to be a landmark moment in moulding how a large amount of their playtime is going to look, as not only does it give them a brand new goal to try to beat in subsequent runs, encouraging them to take more time in their actions in order to be stronger by the time they get to the same position, but it also gives them a kind of knowledge base that they can build upon as they play the game more. Balatro does a great job of giving the player pretty much everything they need to win a run from the start, while locking the most powerful and game-breaking jokers behind the achievements of the game, creating a very clear path of progression for this game, something that is very hard to do in a game with no story like this one. Unless you count the grand adventures of the Space Joker in his attempts to actually upgrade my damn flush for once and not my high card. Depends on what you count as story, I guess. Speaking about those unlockable jokers though, and they're where this game can get really silly with just how high you can take your scores, as a lot of the most powerful multiplicative jokers that multiply your mult value instead of just adding a flat number to it, as well as the best re-triggering jokers, are locked behind getting achievements, as well as the jokers with the strongest unique effects. Cards like Blueprint and Brainstorm that copy the abilities of certain jokers in your lineup, Sulk and Buskin, which re-triggers all face cards, which can spiral very quickly with stuff like Photograph, and so on, can combine extremely effectively with some of the previous best jokers, like Lucky Cat, Baron and so on, to make some extremely ridiculous combos. And this desire to make the strongest combos, unlock new decks to supplement them, unlock brand new difficulties in the form of stakes that introduce unique restrictions for the entire run that change the way you play, such as giving you less discard, increasing the scaling of each ante so the score ramps up faster, to even introducing things like rental and perishable jokers that make it harder to hold on to any given build. Everything starts coming together to trap the player into playing run after run, and yup, the addiction has officially started. Yeah, the longer you are locked into playing this game, discovering the most optimal ways to get the most out of each kind of hand, joker and so on, that desire to both tackle higher and higher stakes, and to increase your high score, has led to this game firmly implanting itself in the collective minds of many in gaming, creating one of the most united and crackhead efforts to break a game as fast as possible. The game's choice to not have a real limit to how high your score can go outside of genuinely glitching the game and overflowing the score has done so much with keeping the players involved with finding the most ridiculous combos to slap on their YouTube thumbnails, along with the funny E numbers. There's a bunch of reasons as to why these high score runs have become such a fun thing for the community to go for. The first one being from the perspective of actual players. Once someone on YouTube does some seeded run that finds every single Baron synergy card, such as the Mime, Blueprint, Perkyo with Cryptid and so on, a bunch of players are either going to try the exact same seed to see if they can follow the correct steps to see that incredible chain of steel card triggers, to break the fire graphic and see that incredible Naninf text, or they're going to acknowledge those synergies and try to replicate them in their own regular runs, creating a cycle where prominent YouTubers do these seeded runs that break the game, introducing more innovative combos into the player base, and keeping them interested and experimenting in their high score runs. Prominent YouTubers showing off this game and its huge potential for insanely powerful runs hasn't been the only way that this game's influence has been spread. Another one of my favourite ways it has done this is through the advertising campaigns it's done, and in particular, the Friends of Jimbo updates that have been rolled out after the game's full release. When a game rises to such insane heights like Balatro has, then it's pretty expected nowadays for DLCs and other updates to come fairly soon after, and in the case of roguelikes, examples of pretty large-scale expansions that come out over the course of a few years are seemingly the norm. Think Enter the Gungeon's large named updates, The Binding of Isaac's many title updates, and so on. However, Balatro has done something completely different with its updates, not focusing on adding much entirely unique content such as brand new jokers and the like, but instead creating a whole host of skins for your face cards that each collaborate with another popular indie game from really anywhere across the world of gaming. Now, on the surface, this strategy seems rather short-sighted and low impact, as well as unlikely to keep players involved, as when a roguelike gets an update, the player base expects a bunch of brand new mechanics and combos to come with it, expanding the player's options and freshening up the gameplay experience. So these smaller, entirely aesthetic updates may seem like they lack impact, but I'd argue that they really don't need to in order to be successful. You see, not only is the current gameplay and variety of playstyles in Balatro already so strong for a game that hasn't been out for that long, but the sheer amount of prominent collabs that these card arts are placing into the game are more than enough to keep many eyes on the game. Shovel Knight, Stardew Valley, Enter the Gungeon, The Binding of Isaac, a whole host of other roguelikes, and other huge indie games all have a friendship with our beloved Jimbo here. So with how easy this game is to initially get into, fans of those games are far more likely to give Balatro a try when they see it that they've collaborated with it, expanding this game's reach even more. Speaking of those updates, I think it's a testament to how strong this game's complexity and natural longevity is that, at least in my viewing experience, these aesthetic updates never really needed to cause a massive wave of new content on YouTube and other social medias, which are often the lifeblood of games like this. Take, for example, most Battle Royale games such as Fortnite, Apex Legends and so on. Whenever a large new season comes out, you see a ton of the biggest creators covering new battle passes, weapon releases and balance changes, so on and so forth. But these simple updates that only add alternate card arts don't really lend themselves to content like that. But despite that, this game keeps having super unique videos that show off many cool seeds, combos, and even mods more recently. It's the clearest showcase of both how much this game has truly gripped and held the attention of millions of people, and how this game's success is no flash in the pan, but a long-lasting phenomenon that I'm sure, with sustained developer support, will continue to engross this many people for months and maybe even years to come. And there we have it. Now we can all go back to actually playing the damn game, as I know we've all been itching to throughout the course of this video. I know I was when I was writing it. It feels a lot different talking about this game that is currently going through the height of its popularity, as opposed to most other games that I've covered that, more often than not, are years old and have a lot more history and legacy to cover in a video like this. The story of Balatro is just getting started, and we're all in for the ride in our collective card game addiction, and I for one am extremely excited to see how far this game and its community can take it. With all of that being said though, make sure to duplicate that subscribe button, and as always, I'll see you when I see you. Bye!